What's up, everybody? It's Chad. I'm back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. I'm here today with my friend, Dr. Hilda Chavez. Thank you for joining me.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, anytime. And I'm glad you brought all these goodies, and I'm sure you guys noticed this right away. There's a bunch of stuff in front of me, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But first, I really want to get into who Dr. Chavez is, and give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Well, I'm a doctor of natural medicine, New Mexico resident. Have been practicing for over 40 years. Mm-hmm. My passion is obviously whole foods, herbal medicine, and cannabis is whole food and herbal medicine. Mm-hmm. So that's been my focus for the last 40 years. My partners and I were the first ones to start certifying patients back in 2007. Oh, wow. When no one else would do it, because the medical doctors were uninformed, uneducated, and they thought they were going to lose their license because they were prescribing. Well, they're not prescribing. They're certifying. Yeah. They're just saying that the benefits outweigh the risks. And that's basically all they had to say, but they wouldn't sign. So we decided we would be the ones. And we accumulated over 4,500 patients since 2007. Yeah, you were one. Yeah. I met you in 2011, I believe. 2013. 2013.
Yes, ma'am.
And I remember even then you had a passion for advocacy and especially for veterans. Yes, ma'am. And I'm so just delighted that you have gotten to this point where you can make a bigger impact in the community.
Thank you. And I think that was more of my goal from the start.
Yes.
I think you remember that, the mission I wanted to get on. And this is the woman who actually got me started. If it wasn't for you, I don't know, if I would have been where I was, because, you got me on that news article that I think went national. And then after that, Jessica Hilda of Drug Policy reached out to me. And then that's when I got involved with the first New Mexico Patients Alliance, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's kind of started with you and kind of just snowballed from there. And, here we are today.
Well, that's what we want to do. We want to collaborate, cooperate, and, put as much good information out there to help not only the patients, but also the medical community, the mental health community, the law enforcement community. All these people need to be aware.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, sorry for that, guys. Remix in the studio. So we'll just cut that part out, Gino.
Back then in 2007, I think there were when I got certified as a medical patient, there were 200 patients.
Yeah.
And now, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, is the medical program is in peril.
Yeah.
Big time. And I am focused and dedicated to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've been trying to focus on too, and especially when I go to Santa Fe and I fight, I try to make sure that the patients are always in mind. And that's one thing I try to tell people too, is that we had patients in mind when we went medical, because we put that 20% aside for patients at all times. That everybody needs to put 20% of their inventory aside for patients. And I'm glad that we did that, because that ensures that we always have medicine, no matter where we go in the state.
Exactly. Well, we are pretty much 90% medical.
Yeah.
I mean, we of course welcome any recreational user, because we all started out as recreational users.
Yeah.
But I have learned a lot in 40 years. And so I know that there's a big difference, and maybe we can talk about that sometime.
Yeah. Here in a little bit, we'll get down to that, because you see why we have all this product here. I just want to get, to your background first, you're helping people and everything. And where did you get started with cannabis? I don't think I've ever asked you this.
Okay.
So all the years I've known you.
I have an interesting story. I have a grandmother, well, not anymore, she passed away, in Sinaloa, Mexico. Mm-hmm. And when I was a little girl, every summer I would spend it at her ranch out in the middle of nowhere. No water, no running water, no electricity, but she had a garden, and in her garden she grew marijuana. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're a little kid, you don't know what marijuana is. You just learn about all the herbs. She was my teacher in the Hispanic tradition. Usually a medicine woman like me is taught by an elder or an aunt or a grandmother. And that's something that's kind of being lost these days. But I was blessed to have a grandmother who used the marijuana. She didn't smoke it. She would put it in jars with alcohol, rub it on her joints, take some little hits of it. And she lived to be 94.
Oh, wow.
She was riding a burro the last time I saw her. And I was like, that's my grandmother. Mm-hmm. And as I got to be a teenager, I was like, my grandmother's growing marijuana. She's going to get arrested. Yeah. So I was a little freaked out. But in those days, in the 60s, it was not a big deal.
Yeah.
People grew their own. They didn't sell it. It wasn't like the cartels today.
Yeah, yeah.
So she was my first influence. And then as I became a teenager, of course, I was enamored with herbal medicine, and I studied as much as I could. Finished high school, went to college. I was studying music and journalism in college. But then I decided, I think I want to do medicine, but I don't want to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So there were no schools around here. The only school was in Santa Fe. And I went there for 2 years. After I got out of college, I went there, studied natural medicine, continued my work with herbal medicine, and cannabis was always in the forefront.
Yeah.
I've been teaching people how to use cannabis without smoking it for about 40 years. Cancer patients, remember back in the day, there was no hospice.
Yeah.
So I meet a friend and they'd say, oh, my grandmother has cancer, and, you know, would cannabis be something that would help her? Of course. But I would teach them how to make it into a tea or into a tincture or into an edible so that they would have at least quality of life while they were dying.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a cure-all. It's
Yeah.
not going to cure the cancer. It's not going to do all the things that some people think it does, but it is important in the quality of life.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. You know, that's something that you've taught me through my time of, you know, being a patient and everything, especially in the early years. You know, you were always teaching me something new. And I think I remember the alcohol story. I think you told me that back in the day about the tincture.
The tincture, yeah.
And that's one of the first times I learned about that. And actually, I think I went home and actually did that. Because, you know, I'd been growing, you know, back then
For
as
your
well.
own, yeah.
I've been growing for myself. You know, back then we had PPLs, or personal production license for those of you who aren't aware. And so, yeah, I was always growing mine. And, you know, I think I actually shared some seeds